Dr. Victor Chijoke Chukwu holds a NCE in music from Adeniran Ogunsoya College of Education, Oto Ijaniki, Lagos State. He graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in Music from University of Nigeria, Nsukka, with first-class honors and got the Best Graduating Student in Music award. He holds a Master of Arts and Doctor of Philosophy in Music from University of Lagos, Akoka. He is currently a lecturer in the Department of Music at Mountaintop University, Prayer City, Ogun State.
Good day, everyone. My name is Victor Chijoke Chukwu, and I welcome you all to this section of the seminar. Without taking much of your time, let's just get into it. For a start, let's have a background information from the topic, appreciating a composer's craft. From the word appreciation, I guess everybody's familiar with that. To composers, who we know those that write music and all that. Then the craft, their handworks. Now, for the background information, craft is not only in music. We have different kinds of craft. Sometimes when we make mention of craft, the mind goes to some physical handworks, but that include intellectual handworks, intellectual works, and the likes. In craft, we have visual crafts, which have to do with images, and they have their ways with colors to paint at what they want. We have dramatic craft, those that display a written works, that is, interpret written works in form of drama. Call them theater. We also have the poetic crafts, those that have their ways with words. And when they say things, they speak to your soul. A sentence could mean so many things from them. And then the fourth one, the musical craft, which has to do with composition. And that is where we are concentrating on. By the word dramatic craft, the target is on the inner being. The visualists or the visual artists are also targeting your inner being. The poets are also targeting at the inner being the same way the musician, as well writing his music, want to communicate to your inner being. You may remember watching yourself, maybe watching a movie. Sometimes you laugh. At the other time, the movie makes you cry. Why? Because the target is not just you, but your inner person. That's why you were moved psychologically and emotionally, and you were able to express some signs. And that shows understanding and a successful communication between the writer of the script and the actors that interpret the script. So, appreciating composers' craft have to do with good interpretation of the composer's works. Clear interpretation. A composer writes music targeting at the souls of men to communicate to their inner being psychologically. Now, they have their tools just like the visualists have their colors. The dramatists or the theater art people have a way with expressions. The poets have a way with words. The same way the composer have tools with which they put together, which have to do with sound, different ways of manipulating sound to minister to the subconscious mind of human. Now we progress to some of the compositional tools and devices. They include, let's say, scale, for example, as one of the tools or devices that composers make use of. Now, in this, before I go on, in this presentation, I will bring it so low that both the learned and music scholars among us will understand, and those that are laymen in this field will as well understand. I have been teaching music from the basic schools, and so you don't expect difficult illustrations. No, I teach people that do not understand anything about this music, and they're able to get it, and understand. So we take it step by step from the basic things we need to understand that composers use, and your understanding of these terms is what will prepare you to be able to interpret, to read into the mind of the composer, because all these crafts, call it musical craft, dramatic craft, visual craft, the target is the composer or the craft man is trying to express his inner being for you out there to understand. And so after putting it in paper, the interpreter, who is the performer when it comes to our own field, have to do justice to the work by reading through the music and at the same time reading through the mind of the composer from what he has put on paper, and a clear interpretation of those things will automatically minister to you or pass across the message from the composer to the recipient. So let's take for instance the scale. Under the scale we talk about their technical names, which some of us have known and some are yet to know that scales that we sing in daily basis have some technical names: tonic, supertonic, median, and the rest of them. I will not go much into that because that's not why we are here. You only need to know that they exist, and if you need to read more of them, you can search, because this is 21st century and you can get any information anywhere at any time. You only need to have a good term to search for, and you will get details of what you are looking for. Now we also talk about the solfa names, which we've been singing: do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, and their tonalities. Now, the solfa names, not just as they are, but they have some psychological and emotional qualities that qualifies them, that the composers are aware of and use them to portray what they have in mind. The do is said to be restful and conclusive, and usually that's the home note for any key. Many songs ends on that, if not on the do note, ends on the do chord. So it's restful and conclusive. That is as a description of what that sound or the impression that that sound creates. Now the re is said to be rousing. It also gives sign, if you stop at that note re, it gives sign of something as expectations. It rouses some things right within you. It's like it's rousing. La, so, mi, do, re. And if you stop there, your listener is expecting something to follow. Mi is said to be calm and gentle. Fa is said to be, I think I can't really figure that out immediately, but if I remember it while we are still talking, I will still make mention of it. So is said to be joyous. It's used for excitement, joy. Rejoice, so. You can still go to whatever, but it brings out, it's about happiness. And when you see songs with happiness, the composer makes use of a lot of this dominant note. La is said to be sad. That's emotional powers associated with La. And it's used mostly, if the La appear many times in your music, automatically you have that sad mood. God of mercy and compassion, look with pity upon me. In that song, you just hear a lot of the songs ending la la la, doti la, da mi mi re doti la zira. So it's all about sadness. But even minor keys, which have the la as the tonic, portrays that. But still, that doesn't mean you can't write joyful songs in a minor key. It's still possible. People do it and still achieve best out of it. But just know that La as a sound is naturally sad in nature. And the T is said to be piercing. That is trying to get to something else. And once you're hitting the T, it's aiming at the tonic. And that's why technically they call it the leading note to the upper tonic, or to the tonic anyway. Now, apart from these solfa, these scales, we also have musical notes and their durations. The composers are conscious of that. And I discovered that we have issues with that. When a composer use a dotted meaning, our singers will give it different durations. This person will sing the dotted meaning for just a beat and rest for 2 beats. The next person will sing it for 2 beats and rest for 1 beat. And so other few will sing it complete to 3 beats. And if the word attached to that note ends in a consonant sound, let's say like S, you will hear S from different people at different time. Whereas if everybody keeps to the 3 beat, it's supposed to come at the same time. If you don't pay attention to these things, automatically you can't get to know it. Even when you make the mistake, you won't even observe that there was anything wrong with it. At least we waited for 3 beats before we moved, and the music keep going. We also have what we call motifs, which helps in reading music. Once you observe a motif, you know what's the note above it and the note itself. Do, re, do, mi, fa, mi, sol, la, so. So once you get the first one, you know the next thing to do is to move up and return, because that is a constant motif that the composer have employed. Understanding of that term motif will give you first idea on sight reading, to know that once it is the motif is moving this way and returning. Once you get in the first note, you know what to do next. We also have sequences, which is just like all the motifs in ascending or descending order. And that's why different kinds of rhythm, which have to do with simple rhythm and compound rhythm, and as well as some irregular rhythms. Sometimes when it is simple rhythm, we easily understand, but when it comes to compound rhythms, compound times, like let's say compound double, and you just say 6/8. Say 6/8 means 6 quavers in a bar. So based on that, you start counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and all that. Now, it's considered as a compound double, which means there are 2 definite beats, but each beat is a dotted crochet. So you study the characteristics, how they behave, so that you'll be able to interpret music without having to wait for someone else to give you the rhythm of this or the basic beating pattern of the song. Now, you may succeed in getting the simple and compound, which are divisible the compound is just divisible by 3s and all that. But the irregular rhythms require some carefulness to establish and, continue the interpretation. So what you need there is to take time, study the mind of the composer. These irregular beats started, with post-romantic music, when expressionism and the nationalism have already set in. People want to express, people are exploiting sound, trying to, create what doesn't exist. And many a times we say madness crept in after romantic, from 19th century, 20th and 21st century music. When you listen to the music, sometimes you don't know whether you are listening to music or you are listening to just artwork. I'll give you a homework on that. Search for a music search for a music titled John Cage 433. You can type it in John Cage, John, normal John, and then Cage, Cage. Search for it in YouTube. The composer wrote that music, and the music is to last for 4 minutes 33 seconds. That is why it's 433. And he used only rest as musical note for the whole composition in 3 movements. You see why I said that is when madness started creeping in. Now, not just that, some of them are actually far interesting, like a Russian composer, Robert Kosakov, that wrote a music titled The Flight of Bumblebee. You can as well find it in YouTube. Flight, F-L-I-G-H-T, Flight of Bumblebee. Listening to that music, you were just picturing a honeycomb. And the bees were all where the bees are, and then flying around, and the sound, even the violin, the player, his fingers were moving like the wings of the bee. And the sound you're hearing is just like a fleet of bees, clustering near you. And it is pure orchestra performance. So at this time we find ourselves, this kind of musics are all coming up with some irregular beats that are difficult to read. But what you need to know is, once you understand rhythmic patterns and you're able to follow it, definitely you will get through. So consider the basic, simple, compound, and irregular. That's just a summary of all the rhythms you can come across. So you either fall under irregular, compound, or simple. Much on that. Now let's talk about lyrics. Song lyrics. Our songs are not just, especially the hymns, they are not just composer's craft. Like I explained earlier, we have a poetic craft, which has to do with literature. One word or a sentence could mean many things if you start interpreting them. You consider God and you say, "How great thou art." Now, ask a poet to interpret that just sentence. That's what we have as a song. How great thou art, O Lord my God. When I in awesome wonder consider all the works thy hands have made, I see the stars, I see the rolling thunder, I see the brooks, and I feel the gentle breeze. That's why I said they have their ways with words. to portray what they have in mind. Just interpreting the word, how great God is. So lyrics of hymns are said to be divinely inspired, majority of them, not just intellectual skill. No. Some of them are true life experiences of people. They put it down. So these lyrics are inspired, and you need to be at the same realm with the writer to be able to interpret them. You need to understand this and give that a consideration. One thing that, sometimes mar the process is diction. I didn't say we all should be grammarians. Sometimes I am one of those that advocate for local languages. Let's speak our language. In fact, if I'm writing any music at all that have to do with lyrics, I'm writing in my local language. So I didn't say you shouldn't learn your language. But when it comes to music, whatever language the music is written in, you need to consider that language and give it the right pronunciations. Or else, there won't be communication. So, whatever culture, if you pick an English song, you must follow the English pronunciations. Though in music, there are some words that have to change. And we have a way we pronounce them in music. You need to know all that and give it consideration when you are singing English songs. When you tune to any other language, French, German, Yoruba, Igbo, whatever language at all, make sure the right tone and the sense are adhered to. Or else you will end up unable to actually communicate or pass the information or interpret the composer's craft on that work. Now, some emphasis. For example, some consonant sounds at the end of a word need to sound a bit low compared to the next word. Let me explain with example. The first time I heard the song, "Where Could I Go?" What I was hearing was, "Where could I go? Oh, where could I go?" Once the last word D in that could sounds so loud, the remaining I will carry the D. So it sounds cool, die, go. And that is not good enough. Where could I go? I have to come with the essence. And the D will sound as a conclusive consonant to the first word, could. Even when you are talking, could I go? The D sounds, but not die. This emphasis has misplaced meaning of words, and paying attention to it will do us a lot of good in interpreting composer's craft. Because they use that language, and so the rules of the language must be obeyed. Now let's get to performance duration. Many a times we just pick our piece. Once we're able to figure out the notes and the lyrics, we're off. All the performance durations in terms of dynamic articulations and expressions, speed controls, and the rest of them, which guides you on when to take this song loud or soft, when to slow down, when to move fast. They are not there for decoration on the paper. They are there to guide you, and because to get exactly what the composer has in mind. You want it fast here, why not perform it fast? You want it soft here, why not go soft? If you ignore all that, you will just move from the beginning to the end. Bam, music is over. Then you've not gotten 20% of the composer's craft. Let's move on to instrumental accompaniment. The basic one we have is the keyboard. We use keyboard as a percussion instrument. We also use it as a melorhythmic instrument, which it is, because you can make melody with it, you can make rhythms with it, and all that. Now, but something we need to get right here. When you create an ostinato or a basic rhythm and chord progression that you are playing repeatedly following a song, especially when you are using two keyboards, you need to ensure that both of you are in order in your chord progression. You need to consider that. Now, African music is highly rhythmic, and with keyboard we can capture all that. But I have observed that in many of our parishes, the keyboard is far louder than the singers. And what you are playing is just an ostinato, not really, the song that the people are singing. Whether it's chorus or the choir performance. Based on that, you need to come down, sustain a rhythm to guide the singers. The attention is on the singers that are passing the message. The accompanist is a supportive arm of the performance. So they are the one doing the main thing, because they are the ones saying the words that the people are listening to. And by the time you are reading, overshadow them, definitely no message is passed. That is one. As an accompanying instrument, composers that write for accompaniment to whatever song, whether solo work or a full choir song with piano accompaniment, is not just writing an ostinato. There is a relationship between the choir and the instrument, the keyboard. Sometimes when the choir is taking a long note, the keyboard has some accompaniment to the song as it's going on, or to fill in that gap has been created. So based on all this, it becomes necessary, and that very, very necessary, when a composer has written his music with certain keyboard or piano accompaniment, such should be followed strictly. We also have orchestral accompaniment. That is usually easy and on point. If the composer has considered orchestra to accompany his composition, fine, because that one doesn't need improvisation. You just play what you have written, and that no much problem. But other issue we have is the use of African musical instruments for accompaniment. Many a times, even when we have concert, when you employ those African instruments, I discovered they are not usually organized. We would just be, hitting them as we like. It's only few times, possibly in some few concerts, we combine them. And then maybe two is doing the right, other ones are supplying noise. And from what I know, Even the layman definition of music says that music is organized sound. Once the sounds are not organized, you can't call it music. That is one of the major challenges I have with the use of African music instruments in our church, especially the gong. We beat it like masquerade music, where you run on the road and hit the thing as you like. Even some masquerade musicians practice and organize. One person is hitting boom, 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 and one ting boom, ting boom, ting boom, and then before you know it, a steady rhythm is established. Here we just carry it and beat it anyhow, as we want. And somebody with indefinite pitched horn, plastic horns, is blowing pour, pour, and the sound is everywhere. If it is not organized sound, it is not music. Oh, we are excited, we are celebrating Jubilee after ministrations. And based on that, you're so excited you carry these things and beat it anyhow. A lot needs to be done to reduce this noise. This instrument has some characteristic behaviors which, if not curtailed, may lead to something else and lead to noise. But no matter how they behave, if they are arranged in a certain rhythm assigned to a certain performer, definitely you will have it fine. So it is just the wrong usage that is responsible to all the distortions and noise that we've been experiencing. Now, general observation before I round off. One of them is composer, performer, and audience connectivity. The composer has written his work, and his target is the audience. The performer is to interpret it to the audience. There must be a connectivity for a successful communication. So, if the performer is expected to understand and have detailed knowledge of some of these compositional tools I've just discussed, so that as he's seeing it used by the composer, he will give it accurate interpretation. And then there will be a clear communication to the audience, and then the connectivity will be perfect. And to achieve this, the performer should know this, and then the music director or the choir master who is in charge of the group, we also have knowledge of it to assess. He is the inspector general to ensure that these things, there is a clear communication from the composer's works and the composer's intention are actually carried to the audience through the performance. The chief inspector is the choir master himself. So all the choir masters need to wake up to get this knowledge. It doesn't require going to school to get the knowledge. You only need to pay attention to them, ask questions, because many a times you keep quiet because you don't want to ask questions and they will say, I don't know anything. You can be a fool for one day and be wise for the rest of your life than keeping quiet and remain like that for the rest of your life. And it's clear that once you ask anybody, such, even if it is on the road, anywhere, I see this sign in me. Sometimes we see a piece of music, we see some signs, we just ignore them. I don't. And you shouldn't. I was called upon to train somebody on a saxophone for grade 5 ABRSM anyway. person happened to be an engineering student. But he decided to change at 300 level. Wanted to return to music, first year. And the university is abroad, and the guy is in Nigeria. He needed to move, and he made inquiries, and he was told you must have at least grade 5 theory and practical. They needed assistant within few months, 3, 4, 5 months, to grab all this and get a crash program. This boy was doing nothing else other than the music. Eat, start home, do the music. When you are tired, you just go out, play with his friends, and return back and continue practicing and studying. Before we know it, within 3 months, we got to grade 5 already. And it's done once in a week. And before I come the following week, this guy have gone through the whole topics and even pushed forward. The determination was there. Now, what am I trying to point out here? When we got to grade 5, he was playing a particular piece. We paid attention to every sign in that music until he saw a sign. He himself have not seen that kind of sign. And he asked me, what does this mean? What does this stand for? I told him plain, because I don't hide my feet, I don't hide myself. I told him I haven't seen it before. It must be a typographic error. So let's pick the accompaniment score of the music to find out what it is, if it is there. We opened the accompaniment, the sign was there on the solo part in the accompaniment booklet. And that means it is not a typographic error. It's just that I haven't seen it before. Then I will search for the meaning and I will get back to you when next we meet. And when I searched, it was this new style of playing saxophone that you bling, that is the sliding notes. So they already have a sign for it where you want it to different from slow. This one is different from slow. So why do I have to point out that? Because he paid attention to every sign, even the ones he had not seen before from all we've been studying in terms of science, and I myself have not seen before. We were very inquisitive to know what it stands for. With that, there will be clear interpretation. Music. In his book, Grade 5, Theory and Practical, he got distinction in them all. And with that, he got a scholarship for his music studies abroad. So, the role of the performer is to understand these signs and give them accurate interpretation. And when that is done, there is a clear communication between the composer, through the performer, to the audience. Now let's consider our audience. Very important. The performer must understand his audience, their likes and dislikes. You as a performer must have the objective of your performance right in your subconscious mind. That is, why do we use this 15 minutes or 10 minutes in this church liturgy? Why is this 15 minutes assigned to the music ministry to sing? What do you need it for? The answer to that must be at the subconscious mind, because that is why you are ministering in church. Now, if the audience likes and dislikes contradicts that objective, then you find a way to go on the objective, not on the audience. But if there is a way they can be merged, because the audience is the reason why you are standing before them. The audience is the reason why you are interpreting the composer's craft there. So, you need to understand why that period of time in the church liturgy is assigned to you to use and ensure that objective is achieved within that specified period. Now, in all the general observations and corrections, what is the role of the choir master? Like that of the performer. The choir master is, in addition to that of the performer, which is to ensure that the music is performed very well, the inspector who assesses it and praise the people when they do it right and scold them when they do it wrong, so that you take corrections and forge ahead. In all this, or in summary of it all, having pointed all this out, the most disturbing of them all that requires urgent attention is the loud keyboard, especially when the choir is singing. If it is praises, chorus, everybody is singing and shouting. In fact, you need it loud to move the crowd. It's understandable. But when the choir is singing and your keyboard is louder than the entire choir song, you need to do something fast. And this is happening in almost, let me say, 50, if not 75% of our parishes. The second one, the indiscriminate use of our local instruments. Let's pay attention to this. My partners will be showcasing the practical chord progressions, the resolutions and the rest of them practical for you to understand the way it should be done. You may say, Bro Chijoke, we still have questions in our minds. You still have not answered us. We want to know the music tradition, the Watchman music tradition. Let it be spelled out for us to understand. Which one is acceptable? Which style is acceptable? Which one should we play and we say this is the good one? You're only talking to us on how to play, how to control the volume, how to do this. Quite understood. I tell you, in a short period of time, there will be a blueprint which will spell out our stance. Because if you ask me, I will tell you that what I know as Watchman music tradition is that we operate as we are led. As you are led by God, the Spirit of God, you go ahead doing it that way. Even the write-ups and the seminars we've heard and the summits is from inspiration as our leader is led. And so when it comes to spelling out what should be taken and what style to play and what style not to play, to spell them out, it's going to appear in form of a blueprint, which is what we stand for, and that is not one man's business. So it will come from the highest of us all, together with all the diocesan choir masters, sit together and brainstorm, just like they do in the House of Assembly. We raise the bill, we debate it until arrive at a concrete something that every person, everywhere Watchman is found, we have to adhere to, that this is our standard. And we look forward to having it, and that very soon. Thank you for listening. God bless you all.